Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Lambert Mbom. I am a freelance journalist based here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to yet another edition of COVID-19 in Africa.
Yeah.
Today we are going to be focusing exclusively on teaching and becoming a teacher in the United States. I was a teacher before. I taught for 5 years in Cameroon, my country of origin, exclusively, let me put it, as an activist in Ambazonia. I taught in Christ the King College. And then moved over to Cas Kumba, where I was teaching philosophy and religious studies. But ever since I came to the United States, which is some 16, 17 years ago, I've really never thought about teaching, which is kind of strange. Until last year or 2 years ago, a colleague of mine, a very dear friend, invited me for a program that he's hosting. I attended the class and never came back, not because I could not, but I think other things came in. But today, I want us to focus on what it takes to become a teacher in the United States. Because very often, people who travel to the United States, they come in, and depending on whom you meet, that person determines the trajectory you are going to follow. For many people, it is a lot of opportunities. They want to have come here to realize our American dream. And that American dream is intricately and intimately related to wealth, building wealth, becoming, having money. Let me put it that way. But many people never consider becoming teachers, and that is strange. I know that teaching is one of the most underrated professions. Okay, we all are products of teachers who guided us through life's trajectory. There are very few people that I know who do not know or do not have teachers, very few, if any. I mean, I can just talk about my dad, may he rest in peace. I know he was a self-taught guy. I've often talked about it. He taught himself and, ended up as a teacher. I want to start off too by paying tribute to my mother. My mother was a seasoned teacher. She taught her whole life. I would say 30 to 40 years of her life she spent as a teacher. And again, back to the point I was making, teachers form an integral part of who we are, integral part of society. I look at the fact that my kids, as a parent, I've come to that sad realization, sad reality that my children spend more time with teachers in school than they spend with me at home. Because they leave home in the morning at 7:30, they come back at 2. By the time they're coming back, I'm at work. I come back to the house maybe between 6, 7, 8 p.m. and it's time to get them ready to go to bed. So you see that they spend at least 6 to 7 hours, 6 to 7 hours of the day with teachers. And yet, teachers, I don't think we pay enough attention or grant enough appreciation to these teachers who form the foundation of our society. And I've often shared the joke that I grew up in a country whereby teachers, yes, are underappreciated. But one experience that has never left me is we used to talk about what they call a teacher's round. You go to a bar, you're drinking, they think that when a teacher comes in, because you are 4 or 5 of you there, the teacher may not have enough money to give drinks to everybody. He's just going to give to one person, if at all. Not because teachers are stingy, but because they are underpaid, okay, and overworked. Now, transfer that to the American experience. For many African immigrants, you look at the US Census, statistics in the US, Africans are the most educated immigrants. Okay, most educated. That means we are benefited most from teachers. And I asked myself, so we were teachers. I was a teacher in Cameroon, traveled to the United States. Why have I not become a teacher? What is it? Okay, how can one become a teacher in the United States? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the opportunities? What are the barriers? And with me this morning, this afternoon, wherever you're is, I have 2 great panelists, Mr. Victor Tarkeh. I met Mr. Victor Tarkeh in Cas Kumba in the year 2000. He was teaching French. I remember very well. We became very good friends because of an experience in the staff room, which I don't want to get into. But I was pleasantly surprised when he told me that he was teaching in the United States. and I'm going to let him share that experience. Welcome, Mr. Tarkeh.
Thank you, to Lambert Bomb. Um, it's been a cool journey leaving Cameroon in 2004 and arriving here in October. Uh, I left Cameroon prepared for teaching and for teaching only. So in 2005, I got interviewed, I was hired, and I started teaching. I didn't waste time. I got certified. It's been a cool journey since then. Teaching in Africa and teaching in the United States, I think it's much easier here because you have everything, just everything you need. It's much easier. I taught in PHS Kumba, taught in CCC with classrooms of 150 students. You don't have that here. And the remuneration is not as poor as people who have never taught tell you. If you can just graduate from school and be earning at least $33 an hour for a beginner first year, that is great. That's almost like some of the RNs. So I think that it's been a rewarding journey where I have really created avenues to support other teachers through Victory Educational Services, through Noble Teachers International, through advocacy at the national level with the National Education Association, where almost every year I go to the national conventions and defend minorities like us. So, long and short, I am still in the teaching field, even though I'm not teaching per se as an instructional lead teacher. Therefore, a resource teacher, that is still some additional reward. I help teachers to achieve best practices. In Victory Educational Services, I prepare teachers to get into the field. Wherever you are in the US, it doesn't matter. You just need to register. We'll do Zoom classes. But the whole thing is, why Victory Educational Services? Because I feel that people abandon a career with a profile and they join a job. Teaching is a career, it's not a job. A job is journey of the brain. What's the difference between a career and a job? A job, you are just being paid your paycheck. There are there is little or nothing attached to that paycheck. You may not have 401k, you may not have insurance, you may not have a pathway to further education. If you're working in McDonald's, that's a job. If you're doing home health aid, that's a job. It's not a career. That employer is not compelled to get you to register for a master's degree and pay for it. So I said, don't abandon what you did so well in Africa and go and do a job, which is journey of the brain. A career is built up on your education, your experiences paid for, your training paid for, you have awards, and you can better build a profile that goes from a certain level up to the top. So you can begin, for example, in PG, you can begin at about $49,000, and in 5 years, you double that salary if you go to school and it's paid for. That's what a career is. So my objective, why creating an avenue to prepare teachers so that they don't sidetrack into jobs, is because they have experience that they are selling to America. Some come with 15 years experience and it's paid for. That's at least $25,000 on top of your 48,000. So I would just want to salvage highly educated professionals, not only in teaching, in the nursing field, engineers who come. and then they get into some security job, it is unacceptable. Forest engineers, manufacturer engineers, some Gaundary and so on, I try to salvage them. I say you cannot go and stand in shoppers as a security officer and you have no insurance, life insurance, you don't have health insurance, you are just contented with your $15 an hour. And then when you get to 60 years to retire, that's when you are fighting to do another two jobs. I can retire now, I'll be okay. So let us not follow jobs, let's follow careers. That's what I
So,
can say as an introduction. Thank you, Mr. Baum.
so thank you very much, Mr. Take. There are a couple of points. I know we're going to come back to your Victory Educational Services and a host of other things. How many years did you teach in Cameroon before traveling to the United States?
I taught for 15 years.
15 years. And you have been teaching here for another close to another 15, am I right?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
combination of 30 years. Wonderful experience. Now, let's move to some other person who has a different path. Jason Quine. Jason to me is like my son because when I came to the United States, I was living with a mother, and when they actually came into the United States together with his two sisters and their dad, we all lived in the same house. And that is how we moved out. All of us who were living there gradually moved out. So it's kind of a victory lap. I feel kind of fulfilled, in a sense, seeing Jason. Jason, I was pleasantly surprised when I met him and he said he's a teacher. And I was like, how did that happen? Because his dad had been a teacher in Cameroon and is also teaching here in the same county, in PG County.
Yeah.
And so, Jason, I don't want to take all the energy out. Tell us your story and thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much, Uncle Lambert, for having me. It's very true. It's very true that going into the teaching field is it's an interesting decision to make, particularly as it's an African immigrant here, because the norm is that you shouldn't, right? That is typically the advice that you get. Because we just do not fully understand, and that's why I think what Mr. Tarkeh is doing is so important. What Mr. Tarkeh is doing is being able to make that distinction between what is a career and what is a job, and being able to break down those misconceptions about it. So in my case, to be honest, when I graduated high school, I actually told my dad I will never be a teacher. um, because my dad had been a teacher in this country. And sometimes when he will come home, those first few years, we came here in 2006. And sometimes when he will come home, I would see how overworked he was, how tired he was, if you ask me. And he was at that time teaching at Central High School, but now he's teaching at High Point. But when he would come home, I would see how tired he was. And I really also saw that he wasn't making enough money at that time. Right. And those were just his first few years here. He had already been teaching for 15 years in Cameroon. So I saw that and I said, well, this is not my path. This is not going to be my path. Even though I deeply admired the work that he did as a teacher. So in university, I've always been into the arts. I've always loved writing and creating. But even when I went to the university, I went and I studied more in the field of engineering. All the way through University of Maryland, I studied all the way, and even all the way till my junior year. I was studying to become a GIS, right, a Geographical Information Systems person, so a tech person, right. But even through that time, I was traveling and doing poetry and writing and creating. So that junior year, I added English as a double degree. Actually a double degree and not a double major, but a double degree. So when I graduated from University of Maryland, I graduated with 2 degrees. But also that senior year at Maryland, I had really gotten involved with a lot of social activism, and that's when I started thinking, okay, it's easy for me to go out there and march. It's easy for me to do all these things, but what am I truly doing in my community to affect change? And that's why I thought about everything else. But it kept on coming to me that teaching is the only true profession where I can have direct change, right? Where I can be able to meet and influence and affect young people before as they're developing, because those teenage years are probably the most important years of their lives as far as their development, you know. And then, that's when I made the decision. Teaching made sense to me. And I remember, sitting my dad down and telling him that, you know what, teaching, I'm going to make this decision to become a teacher. And he just kind of smiled. He really didn't say much. He just smiled and he said, so what changed? And I explained to him, how I'd come into this. So when I graduated from the University of Maryland with my bachelor's of science in geographical information systems and my bachelor's of arts in English, I went to the job fair that summer. And, I really did not know much about teaching, only that I had the passion to want to teach, that I wanted to make this impact, and I was willing to do whatever it took to become that educator. And I went to the job fair, and literally the first interview that I got hired right there on the spot. And that's how I came into teaching. That's even how I met Mr. Tarkeh over
Yeah.
in Petersburg that very first year, and it was quite interesting because I believe the youngest teacher at that time. I was 21. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. You don't see a lot of people my age, and especially as Black young men going into the educational field, is rare, and I didn't even understand that. It took people having to tell me constantly, and me having to look at the statistics to understand that what I was doing was rare. But in between meeting people like Mr. Tarkeh, who also was rare, I did not see a lot of Cameroonian people in education. You don't see a lot of them, but you see a lot in PG County, but not across the United States. But that's also because Prince George's County has the highest concentration of, I believe, African immigrants and even Cameroonian immigrants in the country. So that really just helped to shape it. And as I got more involved, I started seeing, why I had made the right decision, from there. But yeah, that's literally my story. That's how I came into being the teacher.
That's a very, very interesting path.
Yeah,
Social activism got you into teaching, and
yeah,
what I love most is what you said, that teaching is the only true profession through which you have that direct impact on
yes,
change.
yes,
And you just did not want to continue like marching on the streets, and
yep.
you wanted to like get into the hearts of the kids and make that change. I'm not sure it's the same thing. What took you into teaching, Mr. Take?
Um, what took me into teaching from the early years of late 80s? My dad. My dad, who just passed away in the United States here, had been a veteran teacher and school administrator. I just love his lifestyle and the way he brought me up and other siblings. I saw in him a man of leadership, a man of words, a man of religiosity. And then I said, if I just want to copy him only on those aspects, I better just copy the job he's doing. And I wrote the entrance into normal and I passed. He was thrilled. He said, Victor, you are in a noble profession. I did not know what it meant at that time, noble profession. At some point, I said, no, let me follow my other friends. My very good friend was in Enam. He said, Victor, you are smarter than me. Write Enam. I wrote Enam, even though I was in Economal, I couldn't make it. Not because I was not smart, but because of the system that's in place. Uh, my other friends went into the military academy, EMIA, and so on, but we were quite a number of us in Economal, and we made it. And I think that the motivation of great teachers equally impacted me because
Mm.
without good teachers in high school,
Yes.
elementary school and middle school, I could not just say it's just my dad. I have teachers that I am just a replica of what they were in front of me when they were teaching me. I had teachers who taught me like 3 consecutive years, and I just built onto their experience and the kind of things my dad achieved as a leader in the family and the community. I said I want to be like him, and I think I've not disappointed him.
So you are again, you both of you different pathways. Jason had a dad who was a teacher, was not motivated by the dad, but something else. Yours is instead the fact that your dad was a teacher that motivated you. Now, so again, you have been teaching here for 15 years. Jason went into the teaching career in PG County through a job fair. Now, Mr. Tak, can you tell me, I mean, what is the best way to become a teacher?
Mm.
The best way to become a teacher is, uh, first of all, to get prepared. You don't walk into any job fair or any office or an interview when you're not prepared for it.
Mm.
You will just flunk and they'll tell you, hey, what's your number again? We'll call you. Nobody's ever going to call you
Yep.
because you are not prepared up to date. The same interview I went through in 2005, things have changed drastically. The kind of questions they ask me, those are not the questions they ask the millennials who are coming in or people who are moving from other careers to teaching. And the questions, they want to see whether you match with the modern times, whether you are that flexible teacher or you are a teacher who's been teaching for 20 years and you're still using your traditional approaches.
Mm-hmm.
The United States have standards that are different from Africa, but they are not widely different. You just tweak it a little with some preparation. You knock the interview like Jason. You knock the interview like the dozens of people I prepare every year. They go for one interview and they catch it. So you apply wherever you are in the US, whether you're in California, the questions are going to be roughly the same.
Yeah.
Roughly the same because there is what you call common core state standards. They want to see if you can fuse into those common core state standards, whether you have the same classroom management strategies, whether you have the same technology know how that a teacher in Tennessee has, a teacher in Maryland has. And that's why the teaching certification reciprocates in many states. Case study of Maryland, the Maryland teacher certification reciprocates with 44 other states.
Yeah.
So if you have your teaching certificate in Maryland, you can transfer to 44 other states and they are not going to ask you to take any class. Go for an interview. Hey, knock it, sign a contract. You're covered with insurance and everything. That's the
So,
gateway.
so again, I want to welcome everybody who is watching.
Thank you.
You are listening to Mr. Victor Tarkeh and Mr. Jason Quine. These are both teachers of PG County Public Schools. Just some comments. Simo Lantum, that's my student. They says the panel is Cass. Derek, Derek Yu, my boss in South Africa, SCBC TV, say, hey, Jason Quine, hope you are well, brother.
That's my cousin.
Rosemary Ngesap, my friend in Baltimore, thanks, bro. Victor Tarkeh. Good job, Jason, she says.
Yes,
Dr.
thank you.
Interesting talk. Thanks for doing this. Oh, Valentine Binglo, Shufine Binglo, great conversation. Elizabeth Chick, great. So again, I really like us to get Jason. You, like I said, your path is unusual.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the experience has been before I get to the experience. Even
Yeah.
what your peers are saying about you. Is it? I mean, what are the conversations going on within your friends and your age group?
So my friends in my age group, they're typically number one, very surprised. Yeah, they typically ask me, and even some of my students, my very first year, my students were quite shocked that I was the teacher. Um, because
Yeah.
first of all, somebody that young, they weren't expecting. Um, you know, uh, but when you sit down and you start speaking to them, as I do with my peers are surprised. I mean, a lot of them were surprised that I ditched my GIS degree, which would have given me so much more money to become an educator. And also they ask me constantly, like, how are the kids? How do they treat you because of your age and all that type of stuff? And typically, the one thing that I've learned more than anything else, if you come in right and these kids get to understand that you're genuine, that you truly care, oh, they will do everything for you. That is a fact, that is something that I've experienced. And I mean, you always have the kids that are knuckleheads that you will have problems with, but overall, when these kids know that you truly care about them, they'll go above and beyond for you. They would literally do whatever it is that you tell them, to the point where you don't even have to implement discipline in your classroom. They do the implementation for you, right? They
Yeah.
police their fellow classmates and tell them, "Oh, don't talk to Mr. Quine like that. Don't do this. Don't do that." Right. So far, the experience to me has been honestly very positive. I think I've had more problems with the school administration that I've had with students. And you will find that out really fast. But it's, I mean, other than the money aspect of it, really teaching is that gift that kept on giving. I think my favorite time of every school year is the graduation day. You get to see how things have come full circle. Now, me, I've been assigned to teach the 10th grade every single year since I started teaching. And my first time 2 years ago, when my very first students became seniors, it brought it full circle to me that, wow, I've been teaching these students since they were 15, and now they're 18 and they're going out to the world, and you get to see what is happening there. So I think it's very important that what people, and Mr. Tarkeh mentioned this earlier, don't listen to people who've never thought try to tell
Yeah.
you about teaching. I have to stress that enough. There are a lot of people who speak about education and who speak about teaching in the classroom here, who have never stepped foot in the classroom
Yeah.
here. So it's important that you listen to people like Mr. Tarke, who has been doing it way longer than me here in this country and even in Cameroon, and who can make those parallels between what it is like teaching back home and what it is like teaching here, who can provide knowledge. Mr. Tarke, actually, from the very second year, once I got here, he saw something in me. He kept on encouraging, for me to attend the MSEAs and all these national conventions, because he saw something in me that not many people saw. But I was still so involved in the school and in the community because I also coach football in our school. I'm involved with some community stuff in the community there. So this is essentially what it takes. But so far, I don't know. I haven't seen any one of my peers who want to go into teaching yet, but hopefully, speaking through people, it helps to change the image of who we can be as educators here.
I'm interested in the point you just made, Jason. And by the way, thank you for your service to the community. And I'm sure I speak for the rest of the people watching. And I mean, I'll get back to some of the comments. But you are a rare gem. Yeah, I love what you say. When people see that, when the kids themselves see that you are genuine and you truly care, they themselves will be the ones. I mean,
Yeah.
what else? What else can one ask for, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, why the reticence amongst your peers? Why do you think your peers do not want to become teachers? What is it that is stopping them, preventing them from joining this very noble profession?
Well, I can understand for a number of reasons, right? These are the same reasons why Mr. Tarkeh said when you come here, people first encourage you to, especially I know a lot of former educators in Cameroon who come here and are kind of recommended or even urged to go into nursing, something that they know nothing about, something which they're not versed about, something which they're not passionate about as well, and also something that really truly, till you become like an RN, you don't really benefit any of it. And so you see many of them struggle to go to nursing school, struggle to be able to, attain knowledge from a place where they don't even have, not understanding, as Mr. Tarkeh said, that you can spend 5 years here, and that's, and this is something I even learned from my dad, because once my dad got his master's, his salary shot up, given his experience and given his educational level, his salary went up. So it's through learning and understanding these things. It's through understanding the system, right? And I think a lot of people, a lot of my peers who don't understand the system, whose parents who also don't understand the system, encourage them to go into fields that they believe will, because essentially we are looking for money. We're here to find and to make money. So when they don't understand the system, they are easily swayed to go into other fields which they might not truly enjoy, which they might not be passionate about, and also which they might not even know enough of. So they do not succeed or excel as they normally should. But also, I think it's also the money part of it. Teaching here, if you're beginning from the very beginning as me, you understand that you got to put in time to be able to get to that place, and then also to be dissuaded by the idea that you're gonna have you're gonna have the pushback from students. Students are gonna be disrespectful. I mean that comes with the job, but it's also another misconception, because there are very many students that are just looking for you to show that you truly care. And once they see that, it changes a lot of things. It really does.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Take, let me come back to you. When I asked you about what is the path to becoming a teacher, you mentioned simply getting an interview. I'm wondering, somebody who has just come in, he has been teaching in Africa for the past 10 years, just got to the United States, and has heard something about maybe become a cybersecurity expert, and is doing a 3 months course in order to do that. What would you tell the person? What path should a person follow in order to become a teacher? I know that there are different levels. What are the first steps the person should take in order to become a teacher?
Okay, step number one to becoming a teacher, do your evaluation. Do your course by course evaluation. And there are many institutions that do those evaluations. You have Joseph Silney, you have West, you have many others. Do your evaluation, and then your credits. It's all a matter of credit. The credits and the courses have been all trimmed by UNESCO in such a way that a degree in mathematics in Harvard University or Harvard is going to give you primarily the same kind of course titles and credits like a degree in Yaoundé University or SOA or wherever. Those credits now will be tallied, and the conclusive paragraph of your evaluation will say it is the determination of Joseph Silney that Mr. This has the equivalence of a master's degree in mathematics by American standards. You are good to go. Second thing, you need a resume that is befitting. You don't just need a CV, as the British call it, a curriculum vitae, your life story. You need a resume of American standards. And many people don't know how to craft a resume that is appealing to school administrators who are the ones to hire you. You have them all over the place. You just need to build in your experience from Africa into a framework that is usable in the US. You also need to apply.
Mm.
Keep the preparation aside. Nobody is going to come to your door and say, hey, I want to hire you. You need to apply. You need to go through the online process. When I was hired in 2005, I just virtually worked into a job fair in Eleanor Roosevelt. Right now, there are like 4 stages of application where you are pre-selected and you go and you have a panel in your department. If you're doing math, they go through your math knowledge and they see you're fine, and then you finalize with a principal. So it's not a tedious process. People can do it, and we are there to help. Other teachers who are in the system are there to help. I can quote, for example, someone I copied from when I came here. Betazi Philip, who is a school administrator, who took me up to his school where I substituted just for 2 months. He did what I'm doing benevolently for some years, and when he saw me so passionate, guiding others, even though I was not yet fully in the field, he said, Victor, you take over from me. So anytime up to now someone meets him, how can I get into the field? He sends them to Victory Educational Services. And you are meeting a principal with all those awards that you had in Cameroon. Maybe you were a UNESCO club coordinator, you were a soccer coach, and all of that. They say, wow, we can use this guy. He has credentials. And that's how many of our folks have picked up jobs by just doing, I mean, picked up a career. I really don't like the term job. This is a career that has a package behind it. And the most beautiful package is the educational part of it, where you can virtually do a master's and a PhD 100% sponsored. You just need to be alert. Once it is advertised, like on a Friday, put in your application. Get your mentors to sign. You will do your master's in George Washington or University of Maryland 100% free, and you can do a PhD. So application, follow the process.
So,
Evaluation, you do a 2-day evaluation.
Mr. Take, thank you very much. If I understood you very well, for anybody who wants to become a teacher who has come in from Cameroon or wherever from Africa, that's a different part from what Jason went through. What you should be looking at is to try to get an evaluation of your certificate of your degree. Okay, and you
Yes.
mentioned a couple of those services. Where's Joseph Mil-
Joseph Silney.
Joseph Sini? They could get that out. Then, secondly, and this is where I wanted to come in, you already formed up what you call Victory Educational Services. Can you tell us what Victory Educational Service? What are the services that you people provide?
Thank you, Mr. Mbom. Victory Educational Services is uh, a career consultancy and an educational consultancy. We do career preparation not only in teaching. If you are getting hired in other areas, we prepare you because we know the questions, the top questions that they're going to be asking you. We prepare you to be ready for the job. Equally, Victory Educational Services does what you call your further education pathway. It is not acceptable that you teach at the level of a degree
Mhm.
and there are opportunities you cannot go up to a master's degree. Meanwhile, those are paid for. If not all, at least 3/4 of the money, the country will pay it back to you. And that's what many of my candidates, like I have right now, 3 of them who joined last year and last 2 years with a degree. They're currently doing their master's and submitting the payment to the county reimburses them. So this is not, you don't have this in many other So I'm in Victory Educational Services. We do that dual coaching. When you come in with a master's degree, I tell you this master's evaluated by Joseph Cioni or other credential evaluators. Turn this into this university in a sealed envelope. You are qualified to start a doctorate or a PhD, and many are doing that. How are you going to get in a job of security and be doing it's going to be hard because you stand up all day. The teaching job is it's a career that really does not pay you the way people think. But if you understand the system, like some of us, you do your summer activities, that's extra pay. You teach in night school, like I've been teaching since 2006. That's extra pay. That's you are putting on your table 20 something thousand dollars each year from that extra 2 hours that you do in evening school. So when people say it doesn't pay, to me it pays a lot. So just get yourself ready.
So
Thank you.
if that means if you know how to work through the system, you'll be able to make the money that you need to sustain yourself. Now, Jason, can you, as you say, you teach 10th grade, are
Yeah.
you teaching a particular subject or just across the board? How does that work?
It's a particular subject. So here in school in the US, there's a differentiation between when you go through elementary school, middle school, and high school. So typically in elementary school, you have like more of a station. You have like one specific teacher that can maybe teach a range of subjects, right? But as you go up in middle school, you now start having teachers that are teaching specific subjects, and in high school as well. So for me, I teach particularly in the English department. The English department, you teach. They give you either just one specific grade to teach, and then you have a curriculum tailored towards that, or you teach different grades. Now, when you go to the math department, it's a little bit different because with math, there are different subjects under math, right? There's geometry, there's algebra 1, algebra 2. And I think they switch it up in different years. And some teachers, some years will be teaching algebra, some years they'll be teaching geometry, some years trigonometry, all the way to calculus and pre-cal and all that. So my every year they assign you and you get a chance to be able to request what you would like to teach that year. So at every year at the end of the school year, they do like a survey, and you get to determine. You could say, "Oh, I want to teach AP language. I want to teach AP literature. I want to teach an honors class, an honors English class. I want to teach English 11, English 12, English 10, English 9." And then they will try to tailor your schedule based on your choices.
Good. So again, let me get back to your specific experience in class.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been teaching now?
5 years.
5 years. So okay. So in these 5 years, have you had any experiences? I know you mentioned it before that you have not had problems with the students. You have had problems with the administration. What are some of those issues you can speak to that have either emboldened you to continue or just said this was not a good decision? What are some of the challenges you have faced?
I think that so specifically with the school administration, sometimes, and actually a great degree of most times, the administrators, well, at least the ones who come around, the administrators will not understand what is going on in the classroom. Right. And because sometimes they don't understand what's going on in the classroom, it's difficult for them to provide the support that you need to be successful as an educator. And sometimes it seems like your recommendations, because for administrators, they are all, by the book. This is what it says on this page, and this is what we're going to go by. But then, it seems like the recommendations of educators who are meeting these students, as you said earlier, with your kids, we literally probably know your kids more than you do. because we literally see them 5 days a week for at least 8 hours a day. So we get to and we see them for 4 years. Especially for high school students, we see them for 4 years. So by the time they go through us with 4 years, we know how they behave. We can already see it coming. When new students coming every single year, I tell them, yo, I've already seen this enough to know exactly how you're going to behave. So here's what's going to happen. So when we take these recommendations and we bring it to our administrators, the good administrators would say, these are the people who are speaking to these students on a daily basis. Let me listen to them, right? And then try to see how we can work together to create a plan that will all make us successful. That will have the students learning and growing at the level that they're supposed to learn and grow at, which in turn makes the administrators look good, because they're all about numbers. They're all about, okay, we're making sure we're increasing growth across this level, right? And then we, as the educators, who are the ones essentially implementing the strategies and implementing what has been planned to be able to get these kids, moving up in whether it's the reading level, the academic levels, and essentially getting them ready to graduate. That is us. So typically, where I've ran into issues with administrators is when they fail to, listen to us educators and take our recommendations as to how we can go about implementing the strategies and the plans that they have in place.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to welcome everybody. There's lots of comments. My dear friend and brother Kenneth Whelan says, good job, gentlemen. Knowledge is powerful, proudly raised by a teacher. Rachel Kirk says, so proud to see the path you have chosen, Jason. Giselle Mofo, oh, good. Giselle Mofo, watching proud teacher with PG County for the past 17 years. Dr. Chume again says, this is an awesome panel. Auntie Simforosa Fobi song, Mr. Lambert, this is a very interesting topic. Giselle, shout out to Jason, who is my honorable colleague's son. Rachel, there is nothing more needed in the PG County school system than strong Black role models. Kudos. Wonderful comment there. So, Mr. Tarkeh, coming back to you. So, you
Yes,
run
sir.
the program. You have just given us a snapshot. I mean, describe to us what it takes to get into the program that you run, and what are the details, how long it lasts, and what is it you promise people, and how is that, what do they gain at the end of it?
The program, the career pathway program in Victory Educational Services takes about 15 hours maximum. Some people run it for 10 hours and they are ready for interview. But you must be consistent to attend at least 5 classes of 2 hours each. On Zoom, we do it right now, and I have candidates from other states. I know the job fairs around their area. I recommend them to go to those once they are ready. Once you've gone through at least 100 questions, 100 scenarios, and typical technology management in classroom management, and all of those, the strategies that are needed, and you can respond to a mock interview that I create on a panel on Zoom or face to face with other teachers who are in the program, uh, posing as principals and interviewing you. If you score an 80% with me, then you're going to score 90 at the final interview. This has worked 100%, and I have so many that have graduated from the program. It takes a token of 650, and you're in the program. You can pay as you go, but long and short, we look into your resume. We say, no, you cannot put this. Nobody will want to see this in America. You can say this way. I don't create resumes for people. You bring your resume and we look at it. We try to tailor it and say, yes, this may be palatable. What about your experiences in Lycée Bilingue? What about this? And people have done so many things. A teacher does just so many things in 1 year that they forget to even highlight some of those things in their resume. Like Mr. Quine was saying, he does just a lot to change minorities. He's a speaker. We have not even got to that. And that's what I discovered in him. I said, you have to take this to other levels. Now, if he's doing his resume and he doesn't highlight that fact that he's a public speaker, he's a public motivator, it it doesn't catch. The principal does not see anything different from your university knowledge that he can tap into you. If you have coached volleyball, you have run field trips to Limbe or to wherever, and you were appreciated by the regional delegate, I need that document. So, oh, you really need it? I said, I need it because your hirer here will want to see that you've done great things. So, there are just so many things that we neglect, and we just think that it's the degree that is giving me the job. No. What have you done outside of the box as a teacher? What are the things that the students can learn from you? What's your teacher philosophy?
Mm.
Mr. Quinn mentioned philosophy that the kids want to see that you love them. And as I say in the academy, students don't care what you know until you show them that you care.
Yep.
They don't care.
Yep.
Once you show that care at the interview, you show that you can manipulate certain things like technology. Uh, you are flexible. You are lively. You do one interview like Mr. Kwindi, like all those who have passed through this academy, they do one interview. They don't go to the next principal because they don't want to let you go. It's about expressing yourself. Once you get on the job, they're going to train you on many things.
Yeah.
They're going to train you how to integrate. They're going to train you on technology, how to use Google Classroom to teach. They're going to train you on classroom management. But if you were able to manage the worst classroom or the best classroom in Africa, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
So
Anybody who has started can
go ahead,
teach.
finish up your thought, Mr.
Yes, I'm saying that anybody who has started successfully in Africa will teach excellent here
Mm.
and will grow academically because the growth in terms of your level of uh, academics, it's equally money,
Yeah.
which many teachers don't know. Even the American teachers, they don't know. They get into the system at the degree level, they retire at degree level. Even if you have just 30 credits, you turn it in, you have masters plus 30. It's a different barren on the salary scale. And hey, you want to build something sustainable. You don't want to come here and go back the same. But I want to say one thing. Young people like Mr. Quine, who joined me in Gladysburg High School at the age of 21, that was one of my happiest days in that school. When he was introduced, I never met him before he was introduced by the principal. We have a young teacher from University of Maryland, Mr. Quine, Jason. I saw the spelling. I said, but Quine is this should be my guy. Then I started thinking of his father. When I met him, I confirmed those things. I talked to him. I said, Mr. Quine, you are in the right place. Anything you need, let me know.
Yeah.
This is how the school system works. This is how we've been in the school system doing well. We're not surviving, we're doing excellent.
Yeah.
And he's been doing excellent. He is a pillar in the English department in Bladensburg High School. Even though I transferred to another school,
Mm-hmm.
I get hints of his good work. His data, the data he has for his achievement in terms of scores, they're unmatched because of his instruction. Everything you do is tracked. So if even if somebody does not like you or say, hey, you are from this area, your data is going to save you.
Yep.
You had 100 students, and 80% of them, or 99% of them, scored at the national exams
Low.
high.
Yep.
Nobody can shake you. The other part of it is trying to make people like Jason and other who are dynamic to rise up. As some of us phase out and retire, we want to see that what has been going on, institutionalized racism, institutionalized minority discrimination, should stop. And that's why I put in my candidacy and go to national conventions and talk there
Mr.
and
Mr.
raise new business.
Mr. Take, can you hold your
So
thought? We'll come back to that. I know that that
okay.
part within the context of this, but again, I want to thank those. My producer is on today, Mr. Lucius Fru. Charles, he says, can you speak of the advantages trained teachers from home have in this system?
Mm.
Mr. Charles Nana says, Victor Tarkeh, my best French teacher in Kaskumba.
No, thank you.
I'll I'll have to challenge that. Jason, mom, your mom is on. She says, my son, go for your passion. Can I retire now? I'm getting old. And my friend's
Yeah.
wife, Vivian D4, says, Patake is the man of the hour. He's indeed an inspiration. So just before I go to Jason, Mr. Take, can you take the question Mr. Lucius is posing? There are two of them. Can you speak of the advantages trained teachers from home have in this system? And does the pedagogy training you get from Cameroon help your career here?
I'll begin with the last leg of the question. Does your pedagogy training you have from Cameroon help you here? 150%. Mark you, America does not have uh, pure schools like Economal,
Yeah.
where you just train to become a teacher. I can tell you that half of the teachers here did not do pedagogy in school,
Mm.
or more than half. They just have a regular degree and then they jump into teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So the good thing is Cameroonians come in, and most Africans come in as teachers with a lot of baggage in terms of pedagogy and classroom management because they went into a school of education. They did practicum in a high school or middle school or elementary school. They are far better in pedagogy than many people around because they just have their regular degree. Our degrees are education tailored when you graduate from Economa or any school of education in Cameroon. The second leg of the question, what are the advantages? The advantages are just so many. And I kept discovering these advantages as I went on. One that I discovered when I was almost like 10 years in the system was the fact that as a teacher, you can virtually buy a house for, say, $500,000 and you only pay $250,000. This, not all federal workers have this advantage. It is only given to firefighters and teachers, I think maybe police officers.
Yeah.
This is a breakthrough. Many teachers have benefited from this because, hey, when you get information, share it out there. These are federally funded programs by the Department of Housing. So you see a house in, let's say, in Bui or anywhere, if it's under this program, you play the lottery for it. If you win, you win. If this house is $600,000, you are only paying 50%. You will only be paying mortgage on $300,000. And people have built wealth from this. After some time, if you want to sell the house after 3 years, you are free to sell the house if you want. But why sell a house that you are building equity? Second advantage are all the benefits that come with life insurance. If you earn $100,000 in PG County and you happen to kick the bucket, they're giving your family $200,000. People don't know about this. Some work in the system for 15 years, they don't know about this benefit. And when they die, once it's reported, the county is getting that money ready in 30 days. You also have life insurance you can buy from within the system, up to about $500,000.
Mhm.
You have 403B that your employer matches. That's why every 2 weeks I contribute into it. If you contribute $100,000, you know you have $200,000.
Yep.
You have something that many jobs don't have. Like when I was in Bladensburg, I just put in my leave for 6 weeks to travel to South Africa and Cameroon. I don't need to present myself to a boss somewhere to start begging for that leave. That's in addition to your vacations and everything. So you have the holidays, you have the academic profile that you can increase your level of education without spending a dime.
Mhm.
Right now, there are master programs that are free, 100% free. I posted it on Noble Teacher International, and a couple of them have faked it. Those are the things that make me happy.
Mhm.
Universities want to sell their product in counties like ours and in states like Maryland. Once you register, you are good to go. The pay may look small, but what do you keep for retirement? When the teachers get their first pay, they come, this pay is not so big. As you look at the left-hand corner of it, your 403B, your retirement plan, and everything. Compare it to your uh, unpaid job or your security job. You don't have those columns.
Yeah.
And this is a win-win situation. Just because I have seen families frustrated because Mr. X or Miss X comes in here with a master's degree and decides to go to PG Community College, which is O level. Anybody with O level can go to PG College. Means you've completely thrown away your master's degree. Meanwhile, it would have been taking you to a doctorate or a PhD, and then you go back and start prerequisites for I don't know what, forgetting that your 15 years of teaching is paid for on top of your basic salary.
Mm.
So those are kinds of advantages that you cannot beat. If at all I answer that question
No,
from my great.
absolutely. So, Jason, let me come back to you again because your own path is quite different and interesting. I am wondering, what is it you tell you? I mean, if you were, I'm sure there are many young people who come to you, Cameroonians and all that. What is it you tell them with respect to getting into the teaching career?
Um, I will tell them that you are needed. I mean, that's just the truth. As Mr. Tarkeh said, um, you are needed. Especially young black men. You are needed in this educational field. You are highly needed. Um, you matter because, as Mr. Tarkeh said, he's in some years he'll be retiring, right? And the question becomes, who fills that void? And that's a question that we need to constantly ask ourselves now. Is like, who is filling that void? Who is carrying the torch forward? And I can understand because for me too is struggling with that expediency even as a young person to want to make that money now, to want to start setting up your family and things of that nature. I perfectly understand that, but I think that the more that we learn about what the system can offer in terms of benefits, in terms of the things that you can do, I think that probably the only thing that has really kept me going in the profession again is seeing the impact that I'm having on these young people's lives. And that's literally probably what carries me more than anything else. Nothing else fulfills me like being able to see a student at the end of the school year say, just thank you. I mean, they don't have much to offer right now, but thank you. Like seeing one of your former students years ago, years later on Facebook, and you see how they're doing and how they're thriving, and you understand that there is no other profession that can be able to provide you with that, none other than education. And even as we continue to fight, education, I believe, is at the vanguard of every single profession in this country. Education is literally that bridge. So whatever issues that we're speaking about in this country, and even recently speaking about even the racial things, it all comes down again to education. What are people being taught? What are these kids who grow up being racist? Where did they learn this from? Right? It's all learned, all education. And then we even begin to now examine our own educational system, right? So what I tell my friends, young people like myself who are going through college, is that if there is that thing tugging at your heartstrings, right? If there is that thing tugging at your heartstrings, telling you that this might be where you can bring yourself into, this is where you can affect change, then follow that thing. You are needed. I again, as I said earlier, you really don't understand just the void that is till you come into the school, and then you notice that, wow, there aren't enough black young men. And I think that maybe one thing that worked for me, as Mr. Tarkeh said earlier, is that one thing that the kids were able to immediately maybe connect to me is they said, wow, like he's just a couple of years older than us, and he's already gone through college and received his degree, and here he is teaching. So it makes them now, especially for young black men, to start seeing that I too can do this. I too, in just a couple of years, can be this educated. I too can be back in my community doing the work that I want to do. And I think that that's important. So any of my friends who have even an inkling of a feeling to want to do this, I would say, if you got that passion, jump right in. And there will be people to help you along the way. Because as I said, I didn't go through a traditional education program in college. I got an English degree, but when when I got to even Bladensburg, it is the assistance of people like Mr. Tarkeh, some of my fellow colleagues, Ms. Beard, and a lot of people all over on the fourth floor. We're on the fourth floor, Mr. Tarkeh. Literally assisting you. Be open to ask questions. Be open to learning. And that's it. That's all I did. I came with an open heart and a willingness to learn, so that I can be better. And because of that, I am where I am right now.
Jason, you bring tears to my eyes. I mean, just mentioning the fact of, there aren't enough black men teaching in the system.
Yeah.
Last year I had the privilege of being awarded the best dad in my daughter's school, and they brought us to a forum. Dads from all across the PG County. And one of the things that was mentioned there is just the lack of black men in the system to serve as role models for these kids. Yeah. And that's why you find the crime rate keep going up. And you correlated that so well, isn't it? I mean, if we don't have these black people who can also show off that, okay, this is somebody I'm looking to become like Mr. Nkwine, isn't it? They will definitely go to other pathways. And I can't, unfortunately, I have to continue saying this. I can't thank you enough for taking that risk. I call it a risk, and just putting it so bluntly, so plainly, the passion. I can't. As I said, I taught just for 5 years, but I can tell you the number of students who meet me on the way, send me messages on Facebook just to say thank you. I remember the days where you helped us. Some of those things you don't even remember, but that joy, the reward of the teacher is in always getting those compliments, And I really again want to say thank you. There are a couple of more questions that came in, and I want to go to them. Eric Cho says, congrats, sir. And Marilyn Dua, thank you, sir. Cameroonians like to degrade all things Cameroon. Thank you for letting us know that some of our institutions at home, like Ecole Normale, are world class. I have a problem with it, but she has a right to her opinion. Jude Agua, my friend, Mr. Tarkeh has a question that goes to something that Jason just answered beautifully there, but you can throw light on that. He says, thanks for being a conscious and conscientious teacher. What keeps you going in this profession? Is it passion, your perception of it as a vocation, continuity, or love for money? And I'll add, or all of the above.
No, my brother asked a question and answered it.
Yes.
All of the above. Love for the money because the table has to have food. All of the above, but the fact that you can have meaningful impact in the community. There is, even on the way in Prince George's County, I see my students, police officers. I see some of them in the courthouse. They're already lawyers. Those are things that make a huge difference. Relevance is not just a dot. To create relevance, it's sustained. You need to accept to sacrifice far and beyond, even sometimes without being paid. That's why when you look at the money only, you lose the complete picture. Relevance in the fact that Mr. Nkwine mentioned it about minorities. The school districts are tasked by the federal government to recruit more minority teachers. But hey, when they go to the job fairs, the minorities are not there. Because of advocacy, you can get in there and change from within. I was just doing my thing with the Maryland State Educators Association, with the National Educators Association, and they appointed me to sit in Annapolis on the Minority Affairs Committee. There are lots of things we change from there. I attend meetings, at least 6 meetings a year. If you don't tell me that African teachers are being discriminated because of accents, I don't know about it. Or I know about it as an American, I don't care. When I bring that to the table for teachers that I know, I said, this number of teachers, they are having issues because the administrator is hammering on them because so you have an accent. Who does not have an accent? So, long and short, all of the above, the money, the job, the love for the kids, the love to create an impact in your community, not just in the classroom, the community as a whole. Who is going to teach your kids if everybody runs away from teaching? How will the minorities rise one day and have a voice if we cannot speak for them? If you go on YouTube and type Jason Quine, you will see tons and tons of motivational speeches he is giving. His teaching background buttresses that a lot. That is creating relevance. There are people who follow him just because he is who he is. Like he talked about the young people. That's a motivation. Why should I stay in teaching and retire there? There are intrinsic and extrinsic motivations that, you don't want to be beginning your life every day. I came here, I was already teaching for 15 years. I could not be a starter in America, even though I attended a class and one gentleman was telling me America means you must start again. I told that, but that's a lie. I'm not starting again. I just continue. So we can do a lot by supporting each other the way many of us have been doing, by showing that it is possible for a young man like Mr. Nkwine to graduate at 21 and join teaching. Hey, in the next 10 years, not even up to 10 years. He will not be, he'll be in the 6 digits. It's just a matter of, is he doing continuing education? Is he bringing to the county more credits that they move his salary from this level to that? Many jobs don't know about that. If you look at a job that someone has been doing from, say, 2018, they were earning $15. They are still earning $15 today. But in teaching, that's not the case. Some of us are going to benefit from a 6% increase. That's a motivation. There very few jobs give you the color. Color is cost of living adjustment. Even some federal jobs, you may not have it. Teaching job gives you color every year because the bread you go and buy has changed from $3.50 to $3.75. Cost of living adjustment in PG is 2% for the next 3 years. That's already a 6% increase on your salary. Your step increase, your experience was 10 years, now it's 11. It's a different salary scale. So those things keep us on the job and we remain there. Love for the children is first. Children come first. You show them love, they run the class positively for you. You don't show them love, they run the class negatively for you. They set you up. They set you up and you're fired in less than 1 year.
Yes,
Show love.
yeah. Jason, do you have anything to add? I know you already mentioned the passion and all that. Do you have anything?
Well, Mr. Tarkeh, if your first motivation to become an educator is the money, then that's where you already failed, right? Yeah, don't even bother. You can just say goodbye to that. The money eventually comes, obviously with continuing education, with a tenure. But also with just growth, right? Being able to take advantage of some of the things that are being offered. Mr. Tarkeh, I didn't find out about the housing thing till this year. To the housing.
I found out after 10 years myself.
Yeah, I literally just found out about that housing thing this year, and it was actually even through a friend where I found out about HUD, which is the housing and urban development, where teachers can essentially get a foreclosed home for literally close to half of the price. So those are the benefits that come with time. But again, probably the biggest benefit of being an educator is that direct impact. As Mr. Tarkeh said, you are able to see the direct impact because you see that kids are growing. You see a kid who comes into your class, and truly, if you have an impact by the end of the year, that kid is somebody new. And you're having a direct impact in kids' lives between the ages of 13 to 17, 14 to 18. Some might even stay a little bit longer, but at the end, you see when they graduate, they're thanking you. Even some of the kids that you fought with, even some of the kids that you had issues with, you notice that when they're graduating, they've come to this moment of realization, this moment of growth, and they, they're honest. They're very honest. They will tell you that, yes, I fought with you, probably because I didn't know what I was doing, but I have grown now and I'm thankful. I'm thankful. They might not even say thank you now. They might wait a couple of years after they've graduated and moved on, to reach out to you and said, thank you for what you were trying to do for me. And those are the things that matter at the end of the day. And that is the direct impact that comes from being an educator. I think for me, that's the greatest benefit.
Good. So I'd like us to take the last part of this and concentrate on something that is happening within our communities now. There is the racial tensions, and I'm sure within the school system there are vestiges of these racial biases. They also we have biases, racial biases. But I mean, in a particular instance, as a teacher, an African immigrant within a predominantly African American system in PG County. I'm wondering what that experience has been. Mr. Tarkeh, let me start with you, but Jason, I'll come back to you. And when you, Mr. Tarkeh, just go ahead. I'll introduce something that Jason is doing with respect to that.
Okay, thank you. I think that you have to live with the times. and you have to challenge the times. There is sure racial injustices, even in the teaching field.
Mm-hmm.
There is sure discrimination, even in the teaching field. And, if you are not inside, you are powerless. You cannot fight. If you don't stand up and speak up, you are killing the future generations. In the uh, light of what is going on, I think most of the African teachers that I know, especially those who are in the Nobel Teachers International group, they are fighting it in
Yep.
their own way with words. They are standing up, they are speaking up.
Mm-hmm.
Here had the highest number of African teachers being voted to attend the national convention, which was supposed to hold in Georgia, Atlanta. Now, how did that happen? By myself and other people like Dr. David and Dr. Koulibaly from Mali, Mr. Anje, and others. We kept encouraging people. We have gone to these national conventions for the longest time. We need you there.
Mm-hmm.
Put in your candidature and you'll be voted. Just from the the Nobel Teachers International, we had more than 12 people voted. We have a board of director member voted. So if you don't belong, you cannot decide. If you don't raise your voice, nobody hears you. Nobody is going to come and pinpoint the problems of African teachers in the system. Everybody has problems, but your shoe can only pinch you where you know it's pinching. Nobody's going to tell you. So, in that light, I am preparing within this summertime to have a select group of teachers, not only from Cameroon, from other African countries, young people like Jason, take them to places, talk to the county executive, talk to the governor, talk to the CEO, Dr. Golson, and say, look, we have some uneasiness in the house. This set of teachers, by virtue of their color, by the fact that they come from Africa, they are not being spotlighted. They are not brought into some positions of decision making. But hey, we are 1,500. This is our data. Work with it. If you don't raise your voice, nobody will raise the voice for you. If people do not go on the street to march for Floyd, Congress will not be sitting to look into those things. In our own different community organizations, we cannot stay silent. As teachers, those are teachable moments that even though schools were off, they were online. We taught those as lessons. And when you're talking about discrimination and you tell your students, I feel discriminated too, and they see that you are right. You're right, Mr. Tarkeh. This thing must stop. You are impacting other kids. And it's not a wrong thing. It can only be a wrong thing in some of those failed countries that are still stopping people from talking. At least we're in America, you can talk. You can say, hey, this cannot happen. Why should this school administrator who has been on this panel be a vice principal for 30 years and has been applying to be a principal? Why could he not rise to principal? It is institutionalized discrimination. And we say it must stop. Why will this teacher apply for higher positions and they are not selected? It's discrimination. If you don't break the chain of discrimination in the classroom, the children will take it further. If you see the groups only by affinities, it's discrimination. So we must raise our voices. We must come together and write some memos and say, we too, we are not in support of what is going on. There are lots of things happening about immigration, and we're silent.
Mhm.
We need to write to the quarters that be to say no. If you're asking an immigrant to sit home for 1 year before they apply for work permit, you're actually asking them to go and steal to eat.
Yeah.
So there are just a lot of things that we can crystallize them, bring them into a package and present. No matter where we are taking that to, someone will listen to you.
Yeah.
So, mi-
Thank you.
Mr. Tarkeh, I also want to point out that I'm very appreciative for the work you're doing, and our platform, this platform that we recently created, that's about 8 weeks old, is meant to highlight some of those things. I'm sure maybe people did not understand what you were saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there any African immigrant who is a teacher in PG County who is a principal of any school?
I will say no.
Not that I'm aware
I
of.
will,
So,
there used to be one last 2 years, and because of the wrangles, all what we've said, he had to move out of state to another country. That
so
hired him for a better package. Now, that is the question. Why? And we have to say it openly to those who take those decisions. But there's one vice principal that I know of, Mr. Philip Tazi. Has he applied to be principal? Yes. Has he been selected? No. Where is the quota for minorities? Is minority only taking care of certain languages? That's my problem. Maybe if you speak Spanish, you quickly be a minority. I don't speak Spanish. I understand Spanish. I'm black. I come from Africa. I'm happy, and I will not let my people down.
thank you. And this
Thank
again, Jason, again, like I indicated, this platform is meant to highlight these conversations and point this, and I'm happy the organization you said is Noble Teacher International, and I hope that teachers who are on the forum listening, they should join the organization. It's an advocacy platform bringing together, I think, African immigrant teachers across to be able to put some of these things on the table. But Jason has been involved in some great work outside teaching. I just learned about it today. A project he calls of One Blood Project,
Yeah.
and describes himself as a creator and a curator. So, Jason, what is that project about?
So the One Blood Project really just examines the relationship between Africans from the continent and African Americans or Black people from America, and examine that relationship through this lens that it's broken, right? And looking at it with Marcus Garveyite type approach, a Pan-Africanism approach to it, and why it is necessary for us to have that type of approach to be able to fight against white supremacy and to fight against the racial discrimination happening not only the racial discrimination but also the anti-blackness happening not only here in America, but we see it in China, we see it all across the world, even in Africa itself. So I've been literally working on that project for 5 years now, and I think that this is the perfect time to be able to speak, to be able to introduce that project back into the world, because we are in this very curious space now, where we must have that conversation. Most of the divisions between us, and for everybody that I've spoken to, they could never really truly give me an actual true reason why me as an African person dislike an African American, or vice versa, right? It's always comes down to things that through research I've learned are all thought, right? So I will give an example. When I first came here, I came here in the 8th grade. And I remember distinctively, my aunties, and even uncles and well wishers told me, stay away from these African Americans. They're bad. They're this. They're that. Right. And it received some validity when I went to school, and they will call me like, this. Oh, do you swing from trees? Are you a monkey? All those types of things. Now, when you really come down to really truly learn about it, what you understand is that all that they've ever been told about the African continent is that, right? Black people from this country or African Americans do not know about Africa because they were systematically, literally cut off from Africa, right? Everything that they saw on TV about Africa was negative, right? So you grow up believing that, and vice versa. When we come here, all that we are told about African Americans is what? That they're thugs, that they are animals, that they are gang members, and all those types of things, that they are fatherless and all this. So we internalize that as well. Now the funny thing is this, right? Through research, you start understanding just what white supremacy does, right? Chinua Achebe, the author, breaks this down in his book Things Fall Apart. For you to be able to take over a people, right? You separate brother against brother. You pin brother against brother. When the brother fights and kills themselves, you come in and you take the spoils. That is what is even happening in our continent right now. That's why the reason why you see the wars in the DRC, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which should be the richest country in the world, is one of the poorest. We see this and we know this, but we continue to perpetrate these things, right? We literally are the bearers of white supremacy, and we do their work. And when we do their work, it becomes easy for them to be able to come in and do all those things. It's not till I went to college that I started learning, wow, number one, the most educated demographic in this country are Black women. Literally. And then we can even see it through, sometimes, and we as even African people have always made that excuse when we've seen what have been done to Black people in this country. The systematic issues in this country do not only affect Black people from this country, it also affects us as well, right? We know of Amadou Diallo. We know of the Cameroonian brother who was killed here years ago in the early 2000s in Silver Spring.
Mm-hmm.
We know all those things, right? And we don't speak about those things, and we think we're immune. We say things like, oh, maybe if these African Americans just go to school and get educated, oh, this issue wouldn't be the case. And then you see Barack Obama, easily the most educated president ever, and his wife, and the disrespect that they got for just being Black. So it's not about how much education you have, right? It is literally about the color of our skin. And the earlier that we stop being separated by novelties and by misunderstandings, the better for us. And that's why you see, I'm very proud to speak about Ghana. Ghana is doing something especially magnificent about this, right? Ghana has literally opened it up where, last year was the year of return. Last year literally made about 400 years since the first slaves were brought to this country. Right, let me correct that. The first enslaved, because they were never slaves. They were enslaved. There was something done to them and not something that they were, right? So where they were able to go back to Ghana and really truly learn. And that's why you see that most Black people, when they truly learn and know the truth about Africa, they don't speak in ignorance. And vice versa with us, when we truly find out that Black people in this country have invented some of the daily things that we use every single day, from the phones to literally, I can keep naming them. It's not till a couple of years ago that I found out that it was Black women, that literally calculated by hand the trajectory that helped us get to the moon, that helped this get to the moon, right? But we don't teach that in schools. We don't know these things because even systematically, education, you see with our history books don't tell the whole truth. It cuts it, so that's why it's so important for me as an educator to make sure that first I educate myself. So I'm a constant student, making sure that I'm learning and unlearning, so that when I stand in front of my students, I am giving them the whole truth. And I'm seeking and seeing their humanity, right? And that's why educators are so important, especially during this time, so that we can be able to lead the charge, to be able to speak the truth. And for me, I've just been particularly focused on this particular relationship between Africans and African Americans. And don't even get me started on speaking about between Africans and people of Caribbean descent, right? And all those things. But this is where, really my focus is and where my research has been, because I think it's so pivotal, to be able to solve some of the issues, that we have as far as racial discrimination is concerned.
So thank you very much, Jason. That is, again, is part of the conversation we really never get into, the relationships we have with our brothers and sisters, African Americans. Very often when they talk about in this country, when they are talking about races, they just say, hey, blacks, Hispanic, and all that. But then people forget that there are real tensions between these communities. And I'm proud and I'm very grateful for the work you are doing. There's a question here that Eric Cho posed, along the same lines. Can you please throw some light on our people not helping open doors to others? Understanding the consequences too. I experienced it in my field.
Yeah.
He says what you are doing is noble. Yeah, and I think it's a problem within our community. I found it really interesting. I don't know whether interesting is the right word, that Cameroonians find it difficult to open the doors for other Cameroonians in different fields, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But we must also understand that there is a history to that, because there are people who have opened doors to others, and others have now come in and pushed them out of the same room where they were. So, what is the conversations you guys are having around those kinds of issues?
Let me take up on that before Mr. Tarkeh. So let me give an example. Mr. Tarkeh mentioned this earlier, right? When I came in, he saw something in me, right? And so did my fellow educators. They didn't see it as, oh, here is this young man who is going to come in, and be better than us and take over. No. When you truly understand the purpose of your people, it stops being about you. It's no longer about you. It's about the collective, right? The collective growth of the people. Mr. Tarkeh saw that and didn't think to himself, oh, this is just another young man who's going to come in and be better than me and push me out of the way. No, he saw that in 5-10 years, I will be leaving this job, but we need more men who are going to carry the torch forward. Yep. And he understood what that meant. And also, people who typically think that way, that you're going to come in and take their place, they have a self-esteem issue. Let's speak about that. They have a self-esteem issue, because it literally, one thing that we're failing to understand is that there is enough room for all of us to grow and be at the top. There is enough room. Yeah. I don't know why it has to be, it's a you or me thing. No, it's not. We're actually stronger together. So when, and that's why I'm so grateful for the colleagues that I've had so far, who've been able to continuously encourage me, continuously push me, continuously breed, good words into me, sow seeds into me, that has continuously caused me to grow in my field. If Mr. Tarkeh initially saw me and saw me as a threat, then he wouldn't have provided the help or the advice that he gave me. If most of my colleagues at Bladensburg saw me as a threat, they wouldn't have opened up the doors and said, well, we think you can do this. We think you can do this. We think you can lead SGA. We think you can be a class sponsor. We think you can go coach. They would have seen me and said, who is this young kid at 21, 22? What does he think he knows? But they saw something in me and they encouraged that. And that is how we grow as a people, right? It is something called the crabs in the barrel mentality. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
That's that crabs in the barrel mentality, where all you're doing is trying to get out of that barrel and damn everybody else. When instead you can build a ladder based on people. And when the first person gets out, he turns around and he reaches his hand and he grabs people out of that barrel. Mm-hmm. That is our problem. We think that it's it's just one spot. No, there are many spots. We can create the spots. We can create the platforms that elevates all us. MLK once said, a rising tide lifts all boats. Our problem is we constantly think that boat can only carry a certain amount of people. So we leave other people in the water. No, we must fortify that boat so that that boat can be able to lift us all. Until we understand that, right? Other races of people, especially, and I'm very adamant about this, especially as Black people, other races of people do just this. The Jewish people do it, even though they're not a race. The Jewish people do it, white people do it, right? We must learn to be able to say, when I find out that I can eat somewhere, I am telling my brothers and sisters, come and go eat with me. That is how we grow. Any,
Wow.
any other thing keeps us divided and keeps us, and when we're not divided, and I've seen this analogy, right? One finger, right, is not strong enough, but this is strong. That is the analogy.
Wow. Those deep words, Jason. I think you have more wisdom than some of us. Prof. Take, what's your, I mean, again, back to the question, Cameroonians, Africans helping each other, not opening doors. What is it? What is your experience and how do we fix that?
Uh, I think that it's a double facet thing. Um, Not opening doors, we've heard enough about that. I want to also ask, are people ready to knock at doors? Because nobody just stands up and opens a door when nobody's requesting to come in.
Mm,
That aside, there have been situations where people get into some good circles and they don't share.
mhm,
That is not correct. Uh, what we do in Victory Educational Services, we try to salvage those great professionals, highly educated professionals from all walks of life who come in and they start with frustration. And then depression sets in because they want to start somewhere that they were not used to. We should not do that. Now, we have a problem. Our younger generation, they're coming up really strong. But how are we harnessing? I think Cameroonians are trying, Africans are trying enough to help each other, but we forget the centrifuge energy that these 100 organizations in the DMV area, if they come together and create one powerful African organization, Congress will listen to you.
mm,
It's not just about the Nigerian community, Sierra Leonean. If all of the 52 countries can have two representatives and sit down and map out things, you will be listened to. You are knocking at doors. I attended a conference in Washington, D.C. The title was Numbers Matters. Numbers Matter. It was, I thought they were going to talk about African numbers,
mm,
but all along then, the presenters were Asians and they were telling us that they have the numbers of Asian doctors in the whole of US. They have the number of teachers, nurses, engineers, and they take that to higher quarters. You cannot play with us. We need a congressperson in this area. We need to stand for this position. We need to be appointed by the federal government. And it works for them. Now, we are trying to build our own numbers, beginning with teachers, so that we can take to some places and say, don't fool around with us. If you keep fooling around with us, every year we're going to take off for 1 week, all of us, the same week, and you start feeling our impact in the community. So, support system adds each other. I'm not saying that the 18-year-old who comes from Africa, you must join teaching. There are institutions, go to college, and we've been mentoring those people. But if you're 45 years old, 35 years old, 50 years old, and you are trying to start what you cannot handle, that is where the problem is.
mm,
So we are saying, in effect, that there is support system. And believe it or not, some of us don't want to use that support system. It's like people say, I can do it by myself. And they get into wrong channels. They turn around for 5 years and come back again. There is enough support system, whether a person wants to go into nursing, uh, teaching, engineering. We have, like Mr. Quine said, in our community, the highest number of highly qualified young people are the ladies. In the Cameroonian community,
Yep.
I have started receiving invitations for graduation from medical school. Three-quarter of those are the young ladies. When they turn around to make a choice, they don't see their peers because, hey, they just want to go to college around, PG, and then do two jobs, and very soon they drop out. What are we doing about that? That's another way. At some point where you see our brothers, African Americans, you have them right to the top, like federal judges.
Yeah.
If you see a lady who is not married, it's not her fault. She turns around, she does not see the caliber of men. Either some have gone to jail, no fault of theirs, or they did not just continue their education. I have no issue about people relaxing on weekends, but you must knock at doors. People who open. This is a land of opportunities. If you live in this country, you cannot build substantial wealth that will take care of your old days.
Hmm.
You are gone, my friend, because it's very expensive to keep a 75-year-old body running in a country like this.
Yeah.
So we have to support each other. We have to come together and build stamina and create relevance in the eyes of the powers that be. We don't
No,
create that relevance.
no, thank you very much, Mr. Taki. And I think that that point is very important for our community, and I hope that others are listening and taking note. Um, I take to heart the point you made about that you could open a door and there's really nobody there, isn't it? And I think that the community really needs to start. We need to start having more of these conversations, and so that people know, because I'm sure that there are many people who did not know that you have a consultancy where you help people to become teachers across the country, isn't it? And not only just with teaching, because I'm sure you also do this same thing, even just helping somebody with their resume, tailoring it to a particular field where they want, isn't it? You do not need to start over again all the time. It's not a bad thing, but you
Yeah.
cannot start all over. I'd like to acknowledge a comment here, Marilyn Dua. My husband is the most tenured teacher in his department and one of the most qualified too. Yet they always pass over him to make newer teachers head of departments who are less qualified than him. That's the problem we've been talking about here. Miss
So we're saying
yeah, Christopher
he
Messner.
must speak up. He needs to raise that up.
Yes. So, Marilyn, your husband needs to speak up and say, I mean, again, as I've said, that is why we have created this platform. Mr. Christopher Messner, long live a liberated Amber land and a liberated Cameroon land. And he says, racism is not dependent on skin color. I mean, I differ with that. There are black racists, white racists, yellow racists, red racists. The majority in all races are not racist, but they are politically complacent and selfish. That part of it I agree. Yeah, there's been a back and forth. Mr. Lucius Fru says China has been portraying racism for years too. It's now just coming to light with social media being a tool for everyone. Marilyn responds to Mr. Messner. Yes, Mr. Messner, so don't call black people because we don't sponsor studies or carry out experiments on other races. Black people have no racist agenda on any other race. That's the point. That's a good point. Mr. Mehta, the Asians are not a conclusive people or race. There are hundreds of peoples, and each of their upper class treated the lower classes like slaves. Good point, but I think it's besides the conversation. Mr. Ozugen, you cannot help but admire the passion of Jason. His depth, effusiveness, and desire to bridge the divide between African Americans and Africans from the motherland is commendable. The brothers, Eugenie Kemka, my sister and friend, the brothers need to leave the Hennessy alone and empower themselves with education. Okay. Divine Angel was supposed to be on this show, but had other things. Impressive discussion, gentlemen. Eugenie, this is a great conversation for our community. Leroy, congratulations to the soon-to-be ordained priest. May the good Lord grant them the grace of final perseverance to serve him tirelessly in his vineyard. So, gentlemen, we have been going on, you will not believe it, close to 2 hours. I would like us to have a last word. Again, for those who are just joining, we have been on air with Mr. Victor Tarkeh. Mr. Victor Tarkeh runs a consultancy with his wife. It is called, what is the name of it again, Mr. Victor Tarkeh?
Victory Educational Services.
Victory Educational Services. And what they do is they run a session for 10 classes, 10 to 15 hours, where they prepare people to become teachers across the United States, wherever you are. You don't need to move to any place. But if you want to come to Maryland, that is where their base is. They have a lot of experience with PG County, but also across. And Mr. Jason Quine is a young man who graduated from University of Maryland with it's a double degree, I'm sure, GIS and English, and is teaching 10th grade in one of these Prince George's public schools. There's a comment that came in, and I really wanted to, because I really just forgot about it. There's Miss Sarah Elizabeth, Mr. Quine, and Mr. Tarkeh worked with both at, I think it's Bladensburg. They are great examples of great teachers. Von Ganjo, good Bombay Lambert, thanks for bringing in the passionate Victor Tarkeh, who has worked tirelessly to help hundreds of Cameroonians to join the teaching corps in PG County. So again, you see, what we have done, what we will have to try to create is build the synergy and make sure that we don't just build the synergy, but make sure that this synergy is felt across the board and outside our comfortable quarters. Yeah. I think that for us, it's not enough to have these conversations on Saturday and leave them. We are going to continue this to make sure that we build a wider audience, bring the community together and help. So, Mr. Tarkeh, over to you. What last words do you have?
I want to sincerely appreciate this initiative. I think that you are building a think tank, and keep track of the people that you're working with, so that we can build energy and synergy that can be taken to another level. Because when you're thinking about merging with other African countries and talking the true talk, when you're thinking about facing the American mainstream system and raising your voice and standing up, you need people. We do it in a little way in Victory Educational Services. Why do we do it? Because we want to build a database of teachers that can talk, a database of teachers from Africa who enter the system with some good knowledge of the system. Because when you don't get prepared, you are baffled the first 2-3 months, you don't even know where you are. But in our preparation, we let you read about the vision, mission statement, you understand where you are going to interview, you know the schools and you know the system. Above all, the educational pathway. Are you going to stop your education? No, you have to continue. In Noble Teachers International, we do 3 things. Build a base to defend the African minority teachers by always share best practices and support each other professionally. And we create a safe shield for teachers in difficulties. They turn and ask Mr. Anjay in the group, what can I do if my administrator does this? And that is resolved. You give them what the contract says, they are meeting their administrator well armed. That is one of, those are some of the 3 big things that Noble Teacher does. Overall, we want to tell ourselves, we don't want to leave this system retired without having younger people who will rise up and even use the teaching platform to go in and be voted as governors, as congressmen. It is possible. It is only by united forces that we can break the bridges. Don't feel intimidated. When I speak to the 12,000 teachers at the National Convention, I don't feel intimidated. I ask them, do I have an accent? They don't want to answer that. But I put a new business item. I say, look, stop discriminating international teachers by way of accent, by way of origin. And it went through only by raising your voice. Anything that is bad is bad. Even the blind man sees it. So I love what you're doing, Mr. Baum. Continue the freelancing and get our community to another higher level. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. And I just put out for people, if you are looking for a job, you are looking to transition from wherever you are, what career, you are not satisfied, you want to try something else, I can guarantee you, of all the people that have gone through Victory Educational Services, all of them, I said all, I didn't say some, I didn't say many, I didn't say most, I said all have had a job and they are very, very satisfied. You can reach Mr. Victor Tarkeh. His phone number is 240-422-5354. Again, 240-422-5354. If you are listening to this program after it has aired, you can leave a comment. I'll come back and I'll get to you. You can also get my number. But I want to sincerely say thank you to Mr. Victor Tarkeh. You are a real community leader. It is, as a traditional leader yourself, you know that when you go to the forests and you are able to catch an antelope, you do not eat it by yourself. You bring it to the community and call for a feast. I think that is what you have done. You have come in, you have discovered the system, you have studied the system, you have seen the benefits, you know the pitfalls, and decided to open up a consultancy. This is what we want. And I don't want it to end on this platform. I promise you myself, I'm going to make sure that I sell your consultancy so that others, not just because you need them, what is $650 to change somebody's life? That's a pittance, isn't it? But you do that because to people to show commitment. Just imagine it, that you pay $650 and after 10 to 15 sessions, you have a job. Not just a job, it changes your life and you get a career where you are able to retire and retire comfortably. I thank you very much, Mr. Victor Tarkeh. My son, my brother, my friend, my colleague, Jason Quine. Any last words?
Um, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, Uncle Lambert, for this platform. I remember meeting you for the first time some 14 years ago when we had just moved to this country. And it's interesting that, you know, just what 14 years have done and where we are right now. The last things I wouldn't say much here is just this. There is power in numbers, right? We often are unaware of our power, you know, because of so much doubt, because of so much fear. But you know, knowledge is what drives out fear, right? Knowledge is that light that drives out the darkness. So for each and every one of us, I say, even as we continuously live in this country, you know, as Black people, you know, as African immigrants, it's very important that we just continue to learn about ourselves first, because that's where the work begins. And then continue to learn about each other, continue to uplift each other, just as I stated, the things that Mr. Tarkeh did, you know, the things that some of my colleagues who even spoke in the comments there said, by lifting us young people. You know, it's very easy. It would have been very easy for me to come into this country and to lose my way. Right. It would have been very easy for me to go into teaching and after a few months, you know, be get sad and leave, and get depressed and leave. But I've been blessed to know people who saw something in me and who pushed me, right? Continuously nudged me and said, "We think you can do this. We think you can do this." And it is now my job to make sure that I'm educating myself and I'm passing that on. Right. And that is what we should be doing. If we every single day, even every single week and every single year, through whether it be through Mr. Tarkeh's educational services, whether it be through just word of mouth, whether it's finding an opportunity and you think somebody else fits and maybe you don't fit, and just telling that person, this is how we can, again, right, be on that boat and be lifted through that tide. So thank you again for bringing me and allowing me the opportunity to speak about my experience. Sometime this fall, hopefully when I'm done with the Of Wonder project, I can unveil it in full and with other things that I'm working on.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Jason. I'll say, like your mom said, I too can retire. This is great, and I like the passion. You talked a lot about the passion, and you can see the passion. You are doing something that you have a passion for, something that you love, and you're applying yourselves with all the support that you are getting. And one of the most interesting things that I never heard any of you say throughout this conversation is the fact that teaching gives you an opportunity to be able to do other things. Isn't it? You have time to be able to do a lot of other things that other professions may not allow you. You don't have to be sleeping at somebody's house overnight in order to do something. It's a good thing. It's great. Yeah. It's great. But again, like I said, teaching gives you that opportunity, and I'm glad that you did not just take your talent and live within teaching. You are now doing creative writing projects in film and all that. That's great. Yeah. And even in the context of the conversations that we are having, you are contemporaneous to those conversations. It's not something that is strange. It's not some historical thing. It's right here and now. What is our relationship with African Americans? How can we improve on that? How can we make this community better? And I think that these are conversations that we should continue to have. I want to thank the audience. I want to thank everybody for coming. Next Saturday will be another day. And from next month, we shall we shall be more professional with this. And we hope that you all enjoy it. Until then, bye. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank